human shit, like actual feces that I pulled out of someone's asshole. Somehow people accept this about me. When you look someone in the eye with confidence in a message stride, you can tell them almost anything and they nod like, oh yeah, like they've eaten poop as well. I swear I'm a good guy. I was a Girl Scout until the 11th grade. I volunteer for my local government. I volunteer with your children. It's just that I don't know how to resolve both realities, how to contain two different creatures. The one who thinks the community resources are super neat and the one who is totally fine with the approaching apocalypse. The one who does their taxes and the one who has committed a substantial list of felonies. The one who tells kids to dream big and who also tells them lockup wasn't the end of the world, but the water crisis will be. I am not dangerous, and yet I find myself carrying the torch, smoking myself out, sharpening the pitchfork, pitching it into my own butt, and the villagers say, no, don't go, Jenna. We totally love you. We totally love offering you underpaid creative positions. We know you ate poopy, and you seem like you maybe killed somebody. That's just because you're an artist. Totally punk rock. We get it. And yet I distance myself more and more, shivering in the recesses of my imaginary cave. The villagers gather at the mouth, their headlamps blazing in, echoing out my name while they hold hands for no reason. Go away, I hiss. You don't want to be in here. I stretch my arms out, casting a shadow over my cave drawings, which are mostly boobies chalked in red. It's okay, they coo. It's just art, baby. And suddenly I realize how very hungry I am. You got any snacks, I ask? Someone throws a bag of fruit gummies at me and I tear them to shreds. You got big and chicky soup, I ask? We got all the big and chicky soup you need, baby. Just as long as you come home, just as long as you be our queer little white girl or artist we can tolerate. Because sometimes you have a Boston accent and that's cool. We totally got you. Great. Trying to get out of government, you know, it sucks. All right, this next one, it's not as funny, but you can laugh at it. It's about my mom. I'm totally over it though, so you can totally laugh. It's about my mom. But this is one of the two is about my chronic death anxiety and my thanatophobia, as they say. It's called Breathe, Mama, Breathe. Maybe I'm 10, who knows how I seen it then. Maybe I'm trying to watch TV, maybe I don't bother to try. My mother, my brother, they are fighting. Maybe he's 13, it's only ever playing for them. Who knows how I seen it then. They're pushing and shoving, maybe she's drunk, but this time the maybe's a white lie. I know how I seen it now. He decides he's big boy, he can carry mama upstairs. She loves it, she does, every step of the way, cackling. I watch from the bottom, maybe I'm screaming, maybe I'm jealous and alone, never getting to play, always seen as the daddy's girl. And Daddy is lame. Daddy don't remember things. They call him Amnesia, as though that were even a smooth nickname. And then he reaches the top, Hercules, but he screws up the landing. I watch as my mother falls on her head. I run up the stairs when she doesn't get up. My brother looks at me like, I'm wrong, sissy. I kneel down to touch her face. Half of my brain thinks, who's Amnesia now? But the thought recoils when slowly her eyes open and they find me. Jenna, she says, come lie with Mama. Lie in Mama's bed tonight. You see, my mother is a nurse and she knows she hit her head. So she says, Jenna, come lie with Mama and you listen to me breathe. If I stop breathing, you call someone, be sure to make that call. And so here I am, awake Sunday night, a school night, watching my mother's back, feeling this wasn't a game, never no games for me, listening to her subtle breaths until the sun comes up for her. It's really deep, guys. Yeah, just take a breath. Okay. So this is also from the Death Anxiety series. It's about my dad's ex-girlfriend, Peggy. It's called Bye Bye Peggy. I always like thinking of myself as my daddy's confidant, expert dating advice from your prepubescent daughter. Nothing creepy about that. My dad had a habit of dating demanding women, and by demanding I think I mean cold and or crusty. My aunt once told me he also had a habit of dating pretty women. I like that she told me this because it showed me there were more options than pretty. Indeed, one day my dad starts dating a woman who I don't find very attractive. Her name is Peggy, and to me she looks old. She looks old because she has very short gray hair and a stern face. Also, she's a bird watcher. I don't remember much about her. I'm not even sure she lived close by, but I do remember watching birds once, and I have to say I was not very impressed. Anyways, one day my dad decides it isn't working out, and the next day Peggy tells him she has cancer. My dad feels like total shit, and I say it's okay to break up with her still, even though she'll hate you. So my dad pulls the trigger, and Peggy must face cancer alone. By the time my next birthday rolls around, I receive a package in the mail. Inside is my birthday present from Peggy, containing one of my dad's old t-shirts and a check for $10. But instead of reading 10 on the amount line, she wrote only 10. I never bothered to cash it. A few more months roll by, and my dad gets a phone call from Peggy. She is making the call from a hospital bed. She wants to speak to me. My dad hands me the phone, sinks into a chair, and watches me. He is holding a glass of red wine. He is smiling at me, sentimental tears forming but never dropping. This feels serious, I think. This is exactly how he looks when he's listening to Enya. He's smiling at me, and I'm smiling back while I listen to Peggy berate me. You ungrateful little bitch. You don't even call me or thank me for your gifts. You don't even cash that shit. I smile and nod and say, love you too, Peggy. And when the time seems right, I hang up on her. Now we are up in Syracuse, New York, where my father and Peggy grew up. We are here to visit my aunt and grandmother, and perhaps my dad had hoped to see Peggy as well. We are taking a walk in a park with my aunt and her dog, and suddenly my dad says he needs to walk alone. I feel betrayed, but I let him go. A half hour later, my aunt and I hear two girls running up the road screaming. What's wrong, we ask. There's a creepy man in the park, they say. Oh, that's just my dad. I look into the park and see a flock of birds billowing through the air. My father emerges. He's seen the birds too, and he says, I saw the birds, and that's how I know Peggy just died. And later that day, we find out Peggy has in fact died. Roughly around the time we were walking, roughly around the time a flock of birds and a pair of girls were chirping and screaming, fleeing away from my father. There's a required legal postscript on this that my dad makes me read after this poem. Upon reading this poem, my father would like to contest that he did, in fact, stay with Peggy for quite some time while she had cancer. When she relapsed, they had broken up, relapsed. He'd also like to point out that the birds were not fleeing from him, but rather he had told them it was time to go. Shortly after, his friends Donna and Joe called his cell phone, telling him the news. And on a final note, he'd like to make a statement that my description of how he looks while listening to Enya is both cruel and bad. is the bad part that hurt me more. He knows how to hurt me. Okay, so this last one is it's called Fuck Willie the Worm. It's J-Bo, it's Willie the Worm. Okay.
This is great.
Yeah. Okay. We catch word about a motorcycle jousting party and take off in our cars towards the woods, fully expecting to see bearded men knocking each other off motorcycles, using long poles and such. Sometimes the world is that cool. We drive into a hidden nook of the valley and park by a small pond covered in mist. Half of that mist is the exhaust from a lone chopper, a dark shadow ripping through the grass, haunting the scene like a headless horseman in the night. We quiver under denim and leather, thinking of skin getting stripped and what we'll do when somebody dies. And then we see the first mustache gelled up at the ends, hair gel on the beards, gel everywhere really, and we realize we've made a grave mistake as a bouncy house emerges out of the fog, a jousting bouncy house, surrounded by more men with gelled mustaches. Everyone is holding red Solo cups, a band is playing in the background, in a garage full of custom bike parts bought off eBay.com. The band's name is some homage to Neutral Milk Hotel. Okay, but we're not going to judge, nor turn our noses up at the free keg of craft beer, so we load up and head over to the jousting bounce house. All the men are taking turns dueling, balancing on cushy pedestals, knocking each other with politely padded poles. Most of the men are fighting shirtless, just a silent understanding. When it's my turn to fight, the generator versus Willie the Worm, I too take my shirt off, and I too say nothing about it. My fleshy tits are flapping awkwardly off my chest as I bounce into position. I guess I'm being funny, but also I don't care. Moments after I take my place on the pedestal, I look up and realize the crowd is doubled. All the biker mustache men are totally into this. And I remember for the millionth time how these people see me. I remember that nobody else thinks my boobs are very funny. So anyways, Willie the Worm totally cheated and won. And I'm a sore loser about it, so I kick his ass out of bounds. And once I'm satisfied, I bounce to the edge of the ring to roll onto the ground when suddenly a small shadow grabs my arm. I shudder and look down to find a girl with short hair and wide-set eyes looking up at me expectantly. Are you gonna do that again? She asked. And I'm like, dude, what? Why are you touching me? I look down and observe that she's wearing velour leggings, the color of red wine, and I can't help but notice the awkward bunching of fabric in her crotch. That was really brave, she says, and I realize she's talking about my boobs. Oh, cool. Well, I'm done now, I say, shoving my shirt back on. But you should totally go do that, whatever you feel like it. I turn my back on her to go join a circle of my charming next level friends. What a freak, I think. What an ass. And I realize that I'm mad at her for assuming I felt brave, for assuming my tits were symbols of some revolution as opposed to just pieces of flesh that happen to be on my body. A familiar frustration takes hold, and I look back thinking, maybe I'll say something. But then I see her bopping around wearing nothing but her velour bottoms, her little titties barely moving as she jumps, and I catch myself laughing. I realize she just wanted my help because she's probably frustrated too, right? I catch her eyes, she gives me a shy smile, her little cheeks flush, her eyes bright with excitement. But in the next moment, heat starts creeping into her face, her eyes lower in shame as the crowd of mustache men slowly filter away from the joust, heading back to their indie rock garage party, seemingly disinterested in these new boobies. The girl's chest sinks in. She's crestfallen at the response I'd have rather gotten, but isn't this the point, I thought? Isn't this what you want too? And I feel bad. I want to say something encouraging to her, like maybe it's just the pants. But instead I give her a thumbs up like a baseball player to a young fan. And then suddenly some shouting erupts. People are now realizing that the bounce house is tilting, slowly slipping down a small hill behind it. The girl falls to her knees, realizing she's in a sinking ship, looking embarrassed, as though she truly believes she somehow caused this to happen, as though she truly believes her small frame could have tipped this fate, as though her small frame were too intrusive to even be here. Bye-bye, I whisper. And then I too walk away into the mist and gone. Thank you, guys. Okay, well, somebody's going.
Great.
Thank you.
It's going nice.
Oh, chill.